Welcome to Prepper Talk Radio, radio for the ready-minded, where we focus on God, family, and country. Super excited to be here with you today and share with you our thoughts and feelings about preparedness and helping you be and stay ready-minded. We'd love for you to go to our website at preppertalkradio.com, download all of our free resources that are there and get to know more about us, connect with us, and get on our mailing list, because we're going to be start promoting things and what we see and what's going on our email list as well. So join that as quickly as possible. Join our Facebook group at Emergency Prep and Self-Reliance on Facebook. Super excited to promote that, because we got a lot of good comments in there. In fact, one of our episodes, we did a Q&A. A lot of the questions came from that group that we were able to do and answer in a live, and just great interaction there. Also want to remind everybody that there's a lot of woke companies out there, woke agendas that are still going on, still happening. We still need to maintain the fight. We need to still vote with our dollars, and we need to be buying and putting our money where our mouth is. And we need to be putting our money with American made, American manufactured, American companies. If you're that kind of person, if you want to be able to switch some of your dollars or all of your dollars or as many dollars as possible to American made, American manufactured, and American distributed companies, go to mylibertybox.com, mylibertybox.com/Prepper Talk. Fill out the information there, and we'll reach out and we'll have a chat about what we're doing and how we're trying to support American made. This episode is going to be about, what would you do if you only had 90 days to prepare? What would you do if you only had 30 days to prepare? So we're going to get into some things here. If you have some ideas, if you have some thoughts, please comment, please share, please let us know what you think, what you would do, and we'll share that with the community. Because there's some reality to, we might have a scenario where we only have 90 days or 30 days, especially with things that are happening in the world right now. So this is a topic that we thought about and we thought would be really beneficial to everybody. So if you had 90 days to prepare, what would you do?
Well, I think it's definitely just an exercise, right? I think it's a good practice to. There's a lot of different types of thought exercises like this that I like to put myself through, whether it's what would I do if I only had 30 days or 90 days, and not just to get ready, but to a point where it's going to be more difficult to get ready, right? Right now, we pretty much can get whatever we want. We can do whatever we want. I mean, to a certain extent, right?
Right.
We can get pretty much everything we want and need right now. That may not be the case in 30 days. That may not be the case in 90 days. So that's kind of where my thoughts come from.
Well, it's funny because it's like you say, we can do whatever we want. I'm like, I can't go buy the gun I want. We have the liberty to do so, but we don't have the budget to back it up, right?
The ability or so forth. Yeah. So obviously this all depends on budget. But if for some reason, somehow we knew that something big was coming and we could make some drastic choices, right? We could make some pretty intense decisions, which we might not otherwise, right? Because we don't want to compromise our future savings. We don't want to go into debt. That's not what this is about. I don't encourage saying, let's go get a loan, any kind of loan or credit card or second mortgage or whatever, home equity, just to go get these types of preps.
I would.
We're not saying that.
I would.
Well,
I'm not a financial guy, and this is not financial advice. I would run up if I knew crap was going sideways in 30 days.
Well, there you go.
I would run up the Amex, the MasterCard, the Visa, because I'm stupid, but I'm also like, and I'm going to pay a premium on everything. And then if things don't go sideways, I've screwed myself, and I have a real SHTF situation. I've now got, 80 grand worth of stuff to figure out how to pay for it, right? At 29% interest. But
right. Yeah.
I would, if I were in a desperate situation where I didn't have stuff, I would totally do that.
And there might be other options though, right?
Like the last resort type of situation.
Yeah. So in that case, if I knew I had 30 or 90 days, I'd quit my job. I'd cash out my pension,
right?
401k, everything, right? Just cash out. I don't own anything in the stock market, so I don't have anything to sell there, but I would do that as well, right? To get what I needed. And I think also along those same lines is evaluate what I have around my house that I don't need. And let's
start selling it off.
Let's sell it off and get that extra cash and put it into the survival rules of three, right?
So that's one of the huge things that I would be doing. Like, I would take and I would arbitrage everything I have on Facebook Marketplace, like wherever you live in your local area, take all the stuff that you don't use.
Mhm.
Like if it's like if you've got like super specialty tools that you haven't used in 5 years, get rid of them, right? If you've
Mhm.
got things that are just sitting around, like weird costumes and clothes from years ago, maybe you've grown out of, or maybe you've lost some weight and it's just sitting in the closet, like get rid of it. Like even if it's not 30 days to doomsday, like just
Do that
get
anyway.
rid of that crap.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like
Now, as part of your bug out plan, you can't take everything with you. So kind of like Paris did when he moved to Utah, you know, sell a bunch of stuff.
I did, yeah.
And maybe that's part of your 90-day plan. I mean, that's on my list. My 90-day plan is work on a plan to bug out. So part of that plan probably needs to be liquidating stuff and getting cash on hand.
Well, one of the things I did for sure is that, if you're going to have they say that you're supposed to have 3 to 6 months of an emergency fund in cash somewhere.
Mhm.
And I'm like, you know what? If I lose my job in 90 days, let's say your SHTF is you're going to lose your job in the next 30, 60, 90 days. Like that's a legit probability for
Yeah.
a lot of people listening right now.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not talking, I mean, sure, there's going to be some civil, we got a lot of stuff going on in civil unrest going on potentially in natural disaster. But one thing for sure that you could have a little bit of notice on for like that is, hey, you might be losing your job here coming up. So I would say, look, if you've got 3 months of cash sitting in an account somewhere, and your budget is like $1,500 a month for food, take $4,500 and go buy some food storage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because that's the same amount of money you would have put in cash for the food that you were supposed to eat. So go have it in food storage. And that's the other thing too, is I finally realized, and this is kind of what put me over the edge to finally stop talking about getting a generator and getting a solar power bank and actually engaging, was the reality that, you know what, if an emergency happens and I need cash or food or candles or whatever, and the power's out, I would want to use my emergency money to help get me through it. Well, if I have my emergency money and I bought a generator, now I can get through it. So to me, the money is great, but money doesn't do anything for you. If power's out, you can't get to it. There's no cash. But I'd rather have the assets. I'd rather have the physical things that will help me get through an emergency, rather than the cash sitting in a bank somewhere that I would have to go pull out to buy the things that I would need. Like buy them in advance, especially if you have, we all know, if you're listening to this, you know about food storage, canned food, food rotations, you know about emergency power backups and all that stuff. So that's what I would do. If I knew I was going to lose my job in the next 30, 60, 90 days, and if that was my SHTF, I would definitely go get food.
Okay, so on that same topic, Parrish, here's my next advice for you, because you've been talking about this for a while and haven't done anything about it, right?
All right.
You just mentioned you got some new tires, right?
Yes, I did.
But what have you been wanting to do for a long time, right?
Buy a new truck.
Get that vehicle, right? And so, I mean, that's a big commitment. That's a big number. But along those same lines, make sure your vehicles are maintained. You've done all your preventative maintenance on it. Get that done before it needs to be done. Get some new tires. You should know. Hopefully, you do know what your vehicle needs, right? And get that scheduled and get working on that now, because after 30 days, after 90 days, that may not be possible, or as easy, or at less as cheap, as inexpensive.
So what are the things that are going to go away in the first week, right? If things go sideways, what are the first, that's what you need to focus on first.
Right. Yep.
Right. If things go SHTF to the point where our local municipalities aren't working, your water's gone. Right. You're going to have to pot your water into your house, or have a piping system to your cistern, or whatever you've built for yourself. Right. So number one, that's gone. Number two, your entire medical system, prescription drugs, the hospitals are gone. You don't have an emergency room to go to anymore. You can't just use your telehealth or whatever it's called when you call them and like FaceTime to your doctors to get assistance, right? So your first aid is going to be huge. Your medications are going to be huge if you're on them. Honestly, I'd be like, okay, water, I've got that taken care of. Check. I've got I've got filters like crazy. You can boil water. I've got tons of fuel, but obviously that'll run out. I've got a solar oven, and I can use that to distill water. There's little attachments I can put inside of it, so you can distill water, and then you got clean distilled water, right? I would look at, for me, like if I had 30 days left, I'd be like, okay, quit my job, and just work around the house and get some stuff ready. Like I'd go to the hardware store and I'd buy some large pieces of plywood so that I can wood up all the doors and windows that are exterior, right? Just like a hurricane was coming.
Yeah.
But if I wasn't, I would focus on medical, first aid, and food after my water, right?
Yeah. Well, sanitation is a big part of that too, I think.
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing is like hygiene and sanitation, like keeping things clean, the ability to do that. Because I've got a lot of that taken care of, but it's like it doesn't hurt to get more.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we always talk about the survival rules of 3. Number 1, shelter. Number 2, water, and then food. So depending on where you're at in your process, that's where I always start at, right? If you got your roof taken care of, great. You got your, you know where you're going to be, part of your bug out plan. Maybe you need a secondary location to bug out to. I think that is a smart thing to put that plan together. If it's not viable at all, then and you can't see that as a possibility, then cross that off your list, right? Bugging out is not an option. But if you have family or somewhere to go, start working on those plans and see if that's going to be a viable option for you if you do need to bug out. So obviously shelter, that's always number 1. So that's what I kind of consider shelter. Bugging out has always been kind of the quintessential prepper topic, right? Oh, we're going to bug out when things go bad. No, we're not going to bug out unless you know exactly where you're going and you're prepared to go. So that's number 1. Of course, number 2, like you're saying, Scott, water filtration, having a rain catchment system, a way to get more, plan. Like I have a river nearby, I have streams nearby or a spring. Make plans of how to get more, because that's going to be awfully difficult. That's going to be very difficult to get more water. And if you have a plan, your community is going to rely on you as well to get more water for them. That's whole nother topic we're going to get into here in the next hour. But and then food, food storage. Just stock up as much food as you can. With a year to 2 years being my target. If I've got those fulfilled, then I'm branching out to then security after that.
Yep.
Yeah, I would be, when it comes to the water, I would obviously make sure you've got like systems set up to show like maps. Here's where my water supplies are. Like have that done now. If you had 30 days, I would like hurry and go get water catchment basins, additional containers to catch water, and additional filtration for sure. On
your local classifieds, you should be able to go find 55-gallon plastic barrels. I just got some for $25 a piece.
Oh, that's a killer deal.
So, which is exactly a killer deal, and
they're 50 to 100 new.
Yeah, exactly. 60, 70. I think $70 is the last best deal I've seen, other brand new. So yeah, it was a killer deal. When food grade, only food has been in these barrels. So
when I was in California, we had a connection to a restaurant. They would get these big barrels in the sauces, and they didn't know what to do with the barrels afterwards. So they actually sold them for super cheap, which is awesome. And so we would get those barrels and we'd distribute. I would buy, I don't know, 10 or 20 at a time. And that way we could get a bunch of people in on it and get some good deals. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. I don't think you can underestimate how important those 55-gallon drums can be for water storage. That's the hardest thing, is to store enough water. So,
oh yeah.
And then food, having bulk, depending on your budget, start with bulk, with your wheat, your rice, your other grains and such, oats and those, dry beans. Milk, powdered milk, beans. Exactly.
Yeah. So if I was
going to go raid Costco, and by raid, I mean you just go dump everything you've got into whatever food you can
flour.
Get. Yeah. Flour, get your canned foods, things that are going to last a long time. It's funny because on TikTok, I just did a video the other day about, always, like, it's wintertime. a lot of people are forgetting to fill their tank on their car.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure it's never below half. You know, and I've been there where you're like, you're broke, you got to go lower. But I'm like, make sure you're filling that tank, and also make sure you're refilling your pantry.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I'm like, just go raid your grocery store. Go, like, is somebody having case lots? Go buy there. Like, buy everything as cheap as you can, as much as you can afford over the next 30 days.
Yeah, like you're saying about fuel, we always advise keeping some extra gas at home, right?
Hmm.
And so in the first 30 days, I would definitely go through and rotate all my fuels. I use stable in them, but they're still only good for about a year. I've gone a little longer, always buy just ethanol-free fuel. And then, I put that in the truck, use it up, go fill the tank, the cans up again. So that would be part of my first 30 days is refreshing my fuel supply. And like you say, topping off the pantry, make sure that shelves are full. But fuels in particular, get those fuels rotated, water rotated. If you have large tanks of water, get those rotated as quickly, in those first 30 days.
I think it's important to remember too, is your SHTF a bugging in or a bugging out? And so there's a couple of different things I would do depending on whether it was which one that was. If it's bugging in, definitely I'm getting all the resources that I possibly can. And, if it's a cyber attack or if it's some kind of power down, or even if it's not, if there's some disruption, you could be careful. You got to be careful with what you're doing on the internet anyway. So I'd probably go download as many good information. I'd probably buy a few more books on a certain thing so that I make sure I had them. Those are some things I would probably do real quick to make sure that I had some educational resources. Because, if the society is kind of in a situation where I'm not able to work, or maybe the phone lines are down, like whatever it might be, I'm going to have time during the day to read and to learn and to practice. And so I'm going to accelerate my skill sets. But I definitely think that, if it's a bug out situation, I'm going to want to make sure my trailer's up to snuff. I'm going to want to make sure, like, okay, I'm going to have to go through and figure out what can I take, what can't I take. And I think that one of the big things that we've kind of pressed on this show several times is making sure you're organized and where your stuff is. Because if you're like, it might take you a week to find the thing if you're not organized, or like you have to spend hours or a couple of days or getting to where you thought something was, only to realize it wasn't there. So get organized now so that if you have a certain time frame, hey, I know where that stuff is. I can go get it. I know what to pack. If I'm leaving, I can fill my trailer up, or I got the bed of my truck to fill up, because that's important too. Like if all you have is a sedan and you got to bug out, you're going to have to really
can't carry so much. Go
you
get a rooftop
what you're
bag,
gonna
right?
take.
To carry some more stuff.
Unless your sedan is like a Ford Taurus or maybe a Crown Vic, where you can fit like 5 bodies in the trunk. 5 gallons of water and
5 gallons.
But like some of those sedans have a ton of storage.
That's true. That's
but
true.
An SUV or minivan is going to have a lot more. So if your BOL, your bug out location, if it is road or non 4x4 accessible, that's great. You can get to it. However, if it's in an area that's still highly populated, there's still risk, depending on how well you know your population. Our next episode, we're going to talk about neighbors and how much fun that's going to be. But right now in this scenario, if you've got 30 days to prep, like honestly, I'd be saying goodbye to everybody. And especially if I have an electric vehicle, I will, give it that kiss goodbye and say, see ya, because you're not going to be anything to me anymore. Right. My
Unless
car,
you got a big solar array that you can charge it with.
Right. Which most people don't.
Yeah.
And even then, if the grid goes down, so does their solar array, because it's grid tied. Unless you have a bypass,
have the knowledge to know how to do that. Yeah, like you're saying, Paris, I think I had that on my list, is to print out everything you need. To have physical copies. Scott talks about it all the time, having your binders. I just got this Webster's 1828 dictionary.
Ooh, a good one.
This thing is a monster.
That's cool.
And I think it's important to know the true meaning of old English words. I mean, that's a whole nother
Or at
conversation.
least what they defined them as back then, because
yeah,
we got so many wackadoos redefining things nowadays.
Exactly.
It's like you don't even know what your name is, let
We're
alone.
going to have something to refer to after it hits the fan, after things collapse, and have some normalcy, I guess, to kind of refer to old school, old world truth to kind of refer to. So that's kind of why I picked up that big.
You literally reminded me of the Book of Eli, that movie.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
because they were trying to. I mean, they were really trying to gather up all the old intelligence, all the old education materials, and their one sought after thing was the Bible.
Yeah.
That was the thing. They were looking for the Bible,
and
because
they all got destroyed.
Why? Because they could have control over other people if they were the only source of the Bible.
Yeah, so I imagine this dictionary would be on the booked to burn list, right? To get rid of that knowledge, because history is being changed. Our history has been and is being changed. So that's just a little bit of piece I'm trying to hang on to.
So other things you need to remember. You're not going to find this in that dictionary. It's a Scottish phrase. You're not going to be able to do this anymore after an SHTF, which is Herkel-Durkel. Herkel-Durkel is going to be off the table. Have you ever heard of that phrase?
I've heard of it. I don't recall.
I think it's hilarious. It's basically to be able to lie in bed or lounge after it's time to get up and go to work. You're not going to be able to lounge.
Scotsman, the word means Herkel-Durkel. Sit huddled in the collapse position for warmth.
That's awesome.
Like, you're not going to.
I'm going to use that more often.
When you said, "Hey, I'm going to get all these books because you're going to have a lot of time to read," I'm like, are we though? Like, if we're living a full subsistence life where we have to go and procure food, grow, like, you're going to be garden.
Well, think about the winter. Think about the winter, though, right?
During the winter, we're going to have plenty of time, hopefully, to just study. But like every growing moment, we got to be out there getting food going.
Well, I just think about these guys that you see the Southern mansions, they got the library for days, like a whole wing of just books. And I'm like, those guys had time to read. Obviously they were smart. They built their businesses properly and they had their things going, but and maybe, at the beginning, we're not going to be able to do that. But once we get kind of a system going and maybe the crops are in and we're just waiting for for nature to do its thing and grow those seeds to plants, then what do you do? Like, it's time to go read. Yeah. And learn and having a library is powerful. But I think too, if I knew, and I don't know how much you can do in 30 or 90 days, but you can probably do a lot more than you think. But I would pick a skill, whether it's first aid or whether it's martial arts or whether it's, learning to shoot better. I'd pick a couple of skills and I would just go down. I would just spend hours, as many hours as I possibly could to just front load whatever I felt like was going to be necessary for after the SHTF. Because, the last thing we need is, and I think we're going to talk about this a little bit more in the next episode, but there's when SHTF happens, there's riots, there's civil unrest, there's people that are not going to be prepared for you for that, like you are, and you're going to need to defend yourself. And so if you haven't taken the time, or if you've just done it casually, I think that would be a wake up call, at least for me, to like, oh, hey, maybe I need to, I got 90 days to lose 50 pounds, or I got 90 days to, get my be able to actually hit the target rather than just, having bullets ding, ding, all over the range, So it's I think it'd be time to dial in a few skills for that period of time. That's something that I think I would focus in on a little bit more.
Absolutely. Had that on my list as well. I'm also thinking about home maintenance. What's your showing there, Scott?
I was just going to say, I need to restock on some of these bad boys.
Yeah.
This is my 308.
Nice. Well, you still can. Yeah, absolutely.
That's the thing. It's like, prioritize the things you need. Like, nobody knows what you need better than you, right? As the prepper, as you listening to this. So I know what I would go get. Do you know what you would go get? Please break out a pen and paper. And like, if you have an inventory system, please check that out and see where your gaps are and where you need to focus. Like, part of the reason why we're having this conversation today is because it's also tax season. And a lot of people get that tax return, the money that the government stole from you, they're now giving back. You're like, or they're now giving back under duress, right? Because you're like, hey, give it to me, it's mine.
Mm-hmm.
People spend that on stupid things all the time. Oh, we're gonna go on a vacation. We're gonna do a cruise.
Yep.
We have our food storage. No, we're gonna die when things go sideways. Like, use that. Be wise with that.
So I kind of want to piggyback on that, Scott, because there's a lot of people out there that are probably listening right now. They're like, well, if I have 30 days to prepare, or we have 90 days to prepare, everybody else is going to go buy the ammo and there's not going to be any left for me. Well, okay. All right. Fair enough. However, don't you think that if you're a prepper now and you're already looking and aware, you're going to have a jump on the populace?
100%.
I think we're going to have maybe a 30-day jump on a lot of these guys out there, at least before stuff happens, because we're going to see it way ahead of time. Or most of it, I think we would be able to kind of catch it. So just remember that too. Like, yeah, you might think, well, shoot, if I don't have all the toilet paper and I had 90 days to prepare, if I go down to buy toilet paper, it's already going to be rated. Probably not, because you're going to see it 90 days ahead of time. And then the general masses, and you drop the M and you realize what they really are. The masses are not going to be that far in advance. They're going to probably be a week out by the time they realize the crap's hitting the fan. And so just remember that, like, go get your, like, as soon as you can, kind of be, I guess you might want to say, well, I kind of want to be sneaky about it because I don't want to alert and alarm. Get your stuff and then get out and then be like, hey, neighbor, by the way, in the next 60 days, you might want to do the following.
Yeah. And obviously, as a prepper, we got our ears to the ground trying to figure out what's coming next. And so I think all of us know that little red flag that's going to pop up. And we're seeing those things now. Go and get those things that are going to be most difficult to get. I mean, obviously, food is probably going to be one of them. Ammo is probably going to be one of them. If you're not properly armed, that's definitely going to be something that'll be harder to get when it hits the fan. Those are what I would focus on. But I was also starting to talk a little bit about home maintenance. How's your roof doing, right? For so many years, I had a bad roof and I was just barely limping along. And I sure hoped that nothing was going to go wrong until I got my roof fixed. I was able to get that done, and that's off my list. But that's a big one, right? Getting that roof fixed and having again, part of your shelter, one of your high priority items. And then obviously after that 90 days and hits the fan, what are you going to do? I'm going to try and stock up on building materials so that when it's hit the fan, I'm going to be at my bug out location. I'm trying to build a cabin there. That's my next goal at my bug out location. So hopefully part of my plan is to be able to purchase my building materials during that time, have them dropped off at my location, and be able to build, right? Pre-purchase those things and already have them.
So I want to this is on my list of prep, a portable sawmill. One of those small sawmills that you can actually basically you take a long blade chainsaw, you set it on a ladder. That's like the low grade one, right? But then you can run it across and cut planks, and you can do all kinds of cool stuff. That's part of my next plan, like next phase of what I want to do. But like right with you, look at all the home renovations that you're halfway done on, or things that are risky, right? Okay, power's gone. What do I need to make sure I'm taking care of? How are my windows? How are my doors?
Yep.
Do I have any security in my doors? I would reinforce doors. Like if I'm staying home. But it's interesting. Like if you guys remember G. Michael Hopp, he wrote the End series and then The Long Road Home, Line of Departure, and all this stuff. What's interesting, because like in his first book, he hits this kind of scenario. He's like, an EMP goes off and he realizes it before any of his neighbors, before the city, before he goes to the grocery store, he hops on his bicycle, takes the kid carrier basket thing and behind his bike, rides down to the grocery store and buys a whole bunch of stuff. The guy's like, I don't know how to make change. And he's just like handing him stacks of cash. He's like, it's fine. And I don't remember if he did 1 or 2 trips or what, but then he just like piled it all up in his garage. Just here's the pile. Here's all the food. But it's like, as preppers, trying to be aware of what's going on in the world, trying to be aware of what could go sideways at any second. Like if something does go funny, you're going to have that intuition go, oh yeah, this is it. Oh yeah, this. And if it's not,
hopefully, it's right? Probably harder than you think to make that call. That's gonna be.
But if it's not it, and you make that call anyways, and you go spend a few $1,000s that you have lying around on food or other resources, guess what? Now you're better prepared for whatever could happen in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And what's funny is I look at a lot of people that aren't true preppers, but kind of got into prepping and then nothing happened. And so now they're selling stuff. Have you met anyone that's like that? I've met a few, but I'm seeing like you can get
Mm-hmm.
deals on food storage on local for sales websites.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, why are you selling your food storage? They're like, oh, it's only 2 years old. We're selling it because we thought something was going to go sideways, and it's not going sideways. And I'm like,
it ain't like over, brother.
Getting out of the stock trade way too early.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we're going to short the stocks. Well, the stocks haven't moved yet. Well, you've still got 90 years to worry. Like, whatever. I don't even know how. I'm not a stock guy. I don't know what I'm talking about. But it's basically the philosophy of we're banking on something happening and it didn't happen. So what do we do? Well, you keep living, you keep moving, and you don't just plan on everything being freeze-dried food or long-term food storage only.
Mm-hmm.
Like like we've talked about over and over again. Stack the pantry, stack the rotables, first in, first out. Same with your filters, same with your first aid. Whatever you've got first, when you buy a new one or replace it or stockpile behind it, you put it in the back, and then you just work its way forward. But if I only had 30 days or 3 days or a week, I would definitely fix everything I could fix during that time. And I would definitely get more fuel.
Yeah.
Fuel for fire, fuel for because I've got stoves, fuel for my cooktops. I'd get more propane. And the nice thing about all that is I've got places around my property that it's easy to hide stuff.
That's good.
Well,
I think, I mean, this isn't financial advice either, but it's definitely, I'm just sharing what I would do personally. If I would definitely sell all my stocks. I'd get out of the market completely. I'd even pull everything out of the bank. I'd buy all the things that I need to buy. I probably get a ham radio. I do have some, handhelds. I probably upgrade that a little bit for communication. I'd make sure that I just fill in any gap that I had with water and food and sanitation and health, and just fill in all the gaps, and then make sure I had my cars were up to snuff, up to speed. Everything was well with transportation. And then I would just buy some, I'd probably get a few things I could barter with too. Like that's something that not a lot of people realize is, let's say that you have some people that, what you may not be a smoker, you may not be a drinker, you may not be somebody who's, like certain things, but if you know that the population in general has a significant need or desire for that, go get some of it to barter with, because that'll
get you out of a pinch.
Great things. But I would definitely pull all my money out of institutions, because if they're going to collapse anyways, I'd rather have my cash or or at least my cash. I'd rather have cash than electronic death, because everything, if an EMP hits and all my ones and zeros go to zero, go to nothing because I can't get access to my cash, I'd rather have cash. But ultimately, I'd rather have gold and silver.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. Well, I was going to say, before we run out of time here, I think, again, kind of going back to the priorities being shelter. And of course, we're in winter. We're just coming out of winter into spring. I'm thinking forward to the next winter. Yeah. How am I going to heat my house? I'm going to go out and buy. I already have one, but I'd go out and buy a stove, buy a wood stove, get your pipe, your stove pipe, and get that ready for the next winter. Because how are you going to heat your house the following winter if there's no power or there's no natural gas flowing or anyway? So that would be top on my list as well. Get the house set up so I can heat it somehow, and I could probably still get firewood after the 90 days, just out by myself in the woods or whatever. But I think it'd be hard pressed to get a wood stove. I think it's gonna be super high demand. Get one early and at least have it sitting by ready on the side of your house in your garage or whatever, so that you can just put that to work when you need it.
And one that not just can heat your house, but you can also cook on.
Yeah.
Good idea.
If you can't do those two things, because then if it does those two things, you can also run like copper piping around the flue and use that to heat and boil water. Like there's so many cool things you can do when you have a wood stove. But if it's not one that you can cook on, what's the point?
Yeah, I got one for $50 about 3-4 years ago.
Wow.
And it sat in my shed for a couple of years, and now it's at my bug out location, and I use it almost every weekend, and I just absolutely love it. Love the
awesome.
smell.
Isn't that nice?
Love just putting a pot on top of it, cooking on top of it, cooking inside of it. It's an
Nice.
essential. I mean, you look back to our pioneer heritage. Remember all the nice wood stoves they had? I mean, super ornate,
And everybody
but
just
very
trashed it.
functional. And yeah, and that's what I am planning on having in the cabin, is a wood cooking stove like that. Anyway, we're out of time.
No, I mean, if stuff hits the fan, you got to have ways to replenish and sustain that the fuel. You know, if all you have is propane, or all you have is gas, or all you have is something like that, you might find that you run out of it, and now what? You know,
Wood will be the easiest. I mean, for where I live,
you got to have something that you can sustain long term. Most people think of emergencies as just being for the weekend or 3 or 4 days, and that's fine. Definitely want to be prepared there. However, with what's coming, with what's available, what could be possible, we could see with all the threats that we're having from all the different world powers, there's a definite chance for a long term SHTF scenario.
And even if long term is just 2 weeks, that's a lot of chaos that people aren't ready for.
I don't know if you remember, several episodes ago, we had a guy on, and he was in a city, and there was a storm that came through, and power was off for 15 days on his side of the city. I mean, that's just a natural disaster. That's not even talking about, you know, the World Economic Forum saying that they're going to have a cyber attack and you're going to control your life. Yeah. So there's some things to just be ready for. If you're ready, here's the deal. If you're ready for the long term, you're going to survive all the short terms, most likely.
Amen.
So I would say if you're going to prepare for one of them, prepare for the long-term stuff, because you're going to take care of the short-term within that. So that's kind of what I would say. Any last minute thoughts, Scott or Shane?
100% the same.
So you've been listening to Prepper Talk Radio for the Ready-Minded. Thank you so much for being part of the show. We talked a little bit about gold and silver in the show. And so if you definitely feel like you got 30, 90 days to go, and you want to get your money out of the cash and out of fiat currency, and you want to put it into real money, God's money, contact our friends at ITM Trading. The website is learn.itmtrading.com/Prepper Talk Radio, or call them at 1-866-257-0481 for a free consultation. That's 1-866-257-0481. Thanks a ton, guys. We'll see you on the next episode.
See you next week.